picturing in your mind right now. We also completely neglected to bring towels, so we ended the night with a long, wet, cold, and completely silent walk back to friend number 1's house. The next morning, friend number 2 pretended to have blacked out from his 2 beers and claimed that he had no memory of the event. We're still friends to this day, and hilariously enough, he's now my gastroenterologist. It sounds like this kid had sort of like a superhero origin story where he had one traumatic event from his youth, and ever since that moment, he decided to use his powers for good. Our next reply is from Who on Planet Earth. When I was 9 and in Girl Scouts, we had a troop sleepover party that was relatively unsupervised. And at some point, girls just started reaching down each other's pants and ripping their underwear out. Other girls were shoving worn socks in each other's mouths and pulling hair. I just remember sitting in a corner and guarding myself with a ping pong paddle. Apparently scenes like this were pretty common because Matt Mags replies, Girl Scouts descend into chaos so quickly. I remember hiding up in a tree when things got a bit too Lord of the Flies. My asthmatic self was not going to be able to hold my own in a preteen girl fight. Our next reply is from Toss Spilled the Tea. Not me, but a friend. When we were 14, she went to a girl's house for a sleepover. The girl's dad let them hang out in the garage and drank beer. Later, my friend was sitting outside alone and the dad came out and started talking to her. Then he tried to kiss her, and as she backs away, the mom walked out and caught him. The mom started screaming at both of them and told my friend she had to leave. She was 14 and drunk, and the girl whose house it was told her mom that this was BS and she was staying. My friend said she couldn't sleep all night. The next morning, the mom took my friend alone into the bedroom and apologized and said they were having marital problems and he had cheated on her before. Hopefully it wasn't with any other kids. Here's an idea. How about we call the cops on this guy? Getting a 14-year-old girl drunk and then making a move on her? Straight to jail. Our next reply is from Captain Pizzazz. When I was about 15, there was a couple in my cousin's congregation that offered to host a sleepover for some of the teen girls. I was staying with my cousin at the time, so I went with her to the house for the sleepover. When I got there, I realized that this couple had only one kid, and it was a little boy, maybe 6 or 7 years old. The couple set up us 5 teenage girls in the basement. It was furnished and carpeted, not a creepy basement. And the wife set out a bunch of snacks, and then we didn't see her or the little boy for the rest of the night. But the 30-something-year-old dad spent most of the evening with us, offering us sips of his Kahlua drink and leaving the liquor cabinet doors open when he would announce that he was going to another room. I was creeped out, but I was so sheltered at the time that I didn't understand why exactly until years later. Our next reply is from Phallus. This wasn't a sleepover in the traditional sense as we were both in our early 20s, but I once had a friend visiting from out of state and I let him crash at my parents to save him on accommodation costs. Trying to be a good host, I let him sleep in my bed and I slept on the floor. I woke up to the sound of this douchebag wanking in my bed. Who effing does that? It still pisses me off to this day. Our next reply is from a string of numbers. It's nothing that I saw, but more like something that happened to me. I was 13 when I stayed over at my friend's house for the night. We were up pretty late playing video games and eating snacks. I got thirsty, so me and my friend went to the fridge to get a bottle of Coke. When I opened the bottle, the soda shot straight up in my face and got all over my white shirt. I asked my friend if I could shower since I was pretty sticky from the soda. Once I got out of the shower, I noticed my friend and his little brother were knocked out on the living room sofa. By the way, I had no shirt on since the soda ruined mine completely. That's when their aunt came through the front door and saw me. She got close to me and started to rub her hands around my chest and shoulders. I was completely shocked and stayed still. Then my friend's brother woke up and saw what was going on. She stopped touching me right away and said, "Oh, I thought you were my nephew." Then went straight into her room and never came out until I left the next morning. Even if I were her nephew, why the hell would she touch me like that? To this day, I still wonder what would have happened if my friend's little brother hadn't woken up. Ugh, OP, that is really creepy. It doesn't matter if you're a nephew or a guest or anyone, she has no business touching a kid like that. Our next reply is from Southern Street. A friend of mine went to have a sleepover at his friend's house after the friend threw a baby shower. Not only was the friend's pregnant girlfriend drinking and smoking weed, but my friend said that he had to sleep on the floor and noticed things crawling on the floor. They were maggots. He ended up sleeping in his car. Our next reply is from Creamly Tea. My friend's older brother would get mad at her for small things, if she went into his room, lost a TV remote, or shut the door too loudly. And he would proceed to beat the stuffing out of her. He would pull her hair and hold her down and punch her in her sides, literally throw her across the room. He was almost 10 years older than us and easily had 100 to 150 pounds on her. He would eventually tire from the beatings, leave the room, and she would go back to playing with me like nothing happened. I remember being so unbelievably shocked by it, but eventually I became desensitized because of how normal it seemed to her and how unfazed she was by it. Our next reply is from Wiltron. I remember we did a secondary school bonding thing in our first year where you effectively go to a summer camp for the weekend with the whole year group. It was about 200 kids, all 11 to 12 years old, just to get to know everyone. Sleeping arrangements were in dormitories with bunk beds separated by gender, about 30 to a room. The lights go out in my dorm. No teachers, just 30 11-year-olds who don't know each other that well. A kid farts. Hilarious. Someone else farts, and then a few others. Then, I vividly remember a distinct sloppy sound followed by a panic. Oh, that one was not a fart. I would also like to know that this was not the only public pants by this kid. He did it again final year during our Duke of Edinburgh Award expedition overnight while camping. I was sharing a tent with him. That's a whole different story. That was r/AskReddit, and if you like this content, check out my Patreon where I publish by this kid. He did it again final year during our Duke of Edinburgh Award expedition overnight while camping. I was sharing a tent with him. That's a whole different story. That was r/AskReddit, and if you like this content, check out my Patreon where I publish by this kid. He did it again final year during our Duke of Edinburgh